Marcus sat on the cold metal bench outside Children's Memorial Hospital, his hands shaking as he clutched his phone. His 8-year-old daughter Lily was somewhere inside those sterile walls, fighting for her life on an operating table. The doctors had said the surgery would take hours, maybe longer, and he couldn't bear to sit in that waiting room surrounded by other families' grief and hope. He needed air, he needed space, but what he really needed was for his little girl to be okay. The tears came without warning, silent at first, then building into quiet sobs that shook his shoulders. He had no idea that in just a few moments, a stranger would sit beside him and change everything he thought he knew about courage, love, and the mysterious ways the universe works. Before we carry on, please hit the subscribe button for more real, emotional, life-changing stories like this, and let me know where you are watching from in the comments. The autumn wind cut through Marcus's thin jacket as he sat hunched forward on the bench, his elbows resting on his knees. He'd been sitting there for nearly an hour, watching people come and go through the hospital's revolving doors. Some walked out with smiles and balloons, others emerged with red-rimmed eyes and tissues clutched in their hands. He wondered which category he'd fall into when this was all over. His phone buzzed with another text from his mother asking for updates, but he couldn't bring himself to respond. What was he supposed to say? That his daughter, the light of his life, had been rushed into emergency surgery after collapsing during her soccer practice? That the doctors had used words like complications and uncertain outcomes while he stood there feeling completely helpless? That he'd failed as a father because he couldn't protect her from whatever was happening inside her small body? Marcus pressed the heels of his palms against his eyes, trying to stem the flow of tears. He'd cried more in the past 24 hours than he had in the past 10 years combined. Since his wife Sarah had died 3 years ago, he'd been both mother and father to Lily, and he'd thought he was doing okay. Sure, there were bird dinners and forgotten permission slips, but they had found their rhythm together. She would curl up next to him on the couch every evening, her head on his shoulder as they watched cartoons or worked on homework. She'd tell him about her day at school, about her friends, about the drawings she wanted to show him. Those moments had become the foundation of his new life, the proof that he could do this single-parent thing. But now, sitting outside this hospital, he felt like he was drowning. The surgery had been necessary, the doctors explained, after they'd found an obstruction in her intestines that was causing severe complications. It wasn't something that could wait, wasn't something that could be fixed with medicine or rest. His brave little girl had looked up at him from the hospital bed, her face pale but trusting, and asked if he'd be there when she woke up. He'd promised he would, had kissed her forehead and squeezed her hand as they wheeled her away. The automatic doors of the hospital whooshed open again, and Marcus looked up to see a teenage girl walking toward him. She was maybe 15 or 16, with long dark hair and wearing a faded hospital gown under a thick cardigan. Her steps were careful but determined, and she carried herself with a composure that seemed too mature for her age. Marcus wiped his eyes quickly, embarrassed to be caught crying by a stranger, especially one so young. "Excuse me," the girl said softly, stopping a few feet away from the bench. "Is it okay if I sit here? I promise I won't bother you." Marcus nodded, shifting over to make room. "Of course." She settled beside him with the careful movements of someone who'd spent a lot of time being gentle with their own body. For a moment, they sat in comfortable silence, both looking out at the parking lot and the busy street beyond. The girl pulled her cardigan tighter around her shoulders and took a deep breath of the crisp autumn air. "My dad cried there too," she said quietly, so softly that Marcus almost didn't hear her. "Right on this bench." Marcus turned to look at her, surprised by the unexpected connection. "Your dad?" She nodded, her gaze still fixed on the distance. 3 years ago, when I was first diagnosed, he couldn't handle being inside either. Said the smell of disinfectant and the sound of beeping machines made him feel like he was suffocating. She smiled slightly. "He's not really the crying type, my dad. He's more of a fix-it kind of person. But you can't fix everything, you know?" "What was he crying about?" Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "Me," she said simply. "I had just been diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. The doctors were explaining treatment plans and survival rates. And my dad just couldn't take it anymore. He came out here and sat on this exact bench and cried for probably 2 hours straight. Marcus felt his chest tighten. I'm sorry. That must have been terrifying. It was, she agreed. But you know what? That was 3 years ago. And I'm still here. My name's Ava, by the way. Marcus, he replied, extending his hand. Her grip was firm, despite her small frame. Is it your daughter? Ava asked gently. The reason you're out here? Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice to remain steady. Emergency surgery. Something with her intestines. They said it could take hours, and he gestured helplessly at the hospital doors. I couldn't sit in there anymore. Ava was quiet for a moment, seeming to choose her words carefully. How old is she? 8. Her name's Lily. Saying her name out loud made the tears threaten to return. She's been through so much already. We lost her mom 3 years ago, and it's just been the two of us since then. She's the strongest person I know, but she's still just a little girl, and I'm supposed to protect her from things. Like this. 1. You are protecting her, Ava said firmly. You're here. You brought her to the hospital when she needed help. You're doing everything you can do. Marcus shook his head. It doesn't feel like enough. I keep thinking about all the things I should have noticed, all the signs I might have missed. What if I waited too long? What if I made the wrong decision bringing her here instead of somewhere else? What if the doctors make a mistake? What if, Ava repeated softly. Trust me, I know that game. I've played it 1,000,000 times over the past 3 years. What if I hadn't ignored the bruises on my legs for so long? What if we'd caught it earlier? What if the first treatment had worked better? What if? She turned to face him directly. But you know what I learned? The what-ifs will eat you alive if you let them. The only thing that matters is what's happening right now, in this moment. Marcus studied her face, struck by the wisdom in her young eyes. You talk like someone who's been through a lot. I have, she said without self-pity. 3 years of chemotherapy, radiation, bone marrow transplants, infections, relapses, more chemo, more radiation. I've been in and out of this hospital more times than I can count. I've seen kids come and go, some who made it and some who didn't. I've watched my parents age 10 years and 3, watched them fight with insurance companies and research experimental treatments, and hold my hand through procedures that would make grown men faint, end quote. She paused, pulling her cardigan tighter. But I also learned something important. Love is stronger than fear. The love your daughter has for you, the love you have for her, that's what's going to carry both of you through this. Not the what-ifs, not the fear, not the uncertainty. Just love. Marcus felt something shift inside his chest, a loosening of the tight knot of anxiety that had been growing since yesterday. How do you do it? How do you stay so positive after everything you've been through? Ava smiled, and for a moment she looked every bit her age. I don't. Always. There are days when I want to scream at the universe, days when I feel sorry for myself, days when I wonder why this happened to me. But then I remember that I'm still here. I'm still fighting. And as long as I'm still fighting, there's hope, end quote. A gust of wind sent leaves skittering across the parking lot, and Ava pulled her cardigan even tighter. My dad used to say that hospitals are places where miracles happen every day. At first I thought he was just trying to make me feel better. But after 3 years of being in and out of this place, I've seen those miracles. I've seen kids who were supposed to die celebrate their birthday parties in the cancer ward. I've seen parents who were told to prepare for the worst, get to take their children home healthy. I've seen doctors perform surgeries that seemed impossible and succeed. She gestured toward the hospital building. Right now, in there, someone is getting news that's going to change their life for the better. Someone is taking their first steps after being told they might never walk again. Someone is breathing on their own after weeks on a ventilator. Someone is hearing their child's heartbeat for the first time after a successful surgery. Marcus felt a tear roll down his cheek, but this time it didn't feel like despair. You really believe that? I have to, Ava said simply. And so do you. Because somewhere in there, your daughter is fighting, and she needs you to believe in her fight. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the steady stream of people entering and leaving the hospital. Marcus found himself feeling calmer than he had in hours, as if Ava's presence had created a bubble of peace around the bench. He thought about Lily, about her smile and her laugh, and the way she sang off-key in the shower. He thought about the morning she'd collapsed during soccer practice, how she'd been complaining of stomach pain for days, but he'd assumed it was just nerves about school or something she'd eaten. "I blamed myself," he said suddenly. "When my wife died, I blamed myself for not recognizing the signs of her heart condition sooner. And now, with Lily, I'm doing the same thing. I'm terrified that I'm going to lose her too, and it'll be my fault." Ava turned to look at him, her expression gentle but serious. "Can I tell you something my dad learned during my treatment? Something that helped him stop blaming himself?" Marcus nodded. "He learned that sometimes bad things happen to good people for no reason at all. It's not because they did something wrong. It's not because they didn't pray hard enough, or love hard enough, or fight hard enough. It's just because life is unpredictable, and fragile, and sometimes unfair." She paused, watching a family emerge from the hospital, their faces bright with joy. "But he also learned that when bad things happen, that's when love becomes most important. Not to prevent the bad things, because you can't always do that, but to carry you through them." Marcus thought about Sarah, about how she'd made him promise to take care of Lily, to love her enough for both of them. At the time, he'd thought that meant protecting her from ever experiencing pain or loss. But maybe it meant something different. Maybe it meant being present for her pain, being strong enough to hold her through it. "My dad used to sit on this bench and make deals with God," Ava continued with a small smile. "He'd promise to give up coffee, or to volunteer at the animal shelter, or to call his mother more often if I got better. One time, he even promised to take ballroom dancing lessons with my mom if my white blood cell count improved." "Did he follow through?" Marcus asked. "Every single promise," Ava said with a laugh. "We have a video of him attempting the tango. It's pretty embarrassing, but it's also one of my favorite things in the world because it shows how much he loves me." Marcus's phone buzzed, and he looked down to see a text from Dr. Rodriguez, the surgeon overseeing Lily's operation. His heart stopped for a moment before he read the message. "Surgery going well. Should be another hour or two. We'll update you when complete." "Good news?" Ava asked, noticing his expression. "The surgery is going well," Marcus said, feeling a wave of relief wash over him. "Still going to be a while, but it's going well." "See?" Ava said, bumping his shoulder gently. "I told you miracles happen here every day." Marcus found himself smiling for the first time in 24 hours. "Thank you, Ava. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't come out here." "You would have figured it out," she said confidently. "Parents always do. It's like you have this superpower that kicks in when your kids need you most." A nurse in pink scrubs emerged from the hospital and approached them. "Ava, honey, your mom's been looking for you. She's worried about you being out here without a jacket." Ava stood up carefully, adjusting her cardigan. "I should go back inside. But Marcus, I want you to remember something, okay? Your daughter is lucky to have you. She's lucky to have someone who loves her so much that he sits on a bench outside a hospital crying because he's scared of losing her. That kind of love is powerful medicine." Marcus stood up too, wanting to hug this remarkable girl who had appeared in his darkest moment like some kind of angel. "Thank you, Ava, for everything. I hope I get to meet you again when this is all over." "I hope so too," she said with a warm smile. "Take care of yourself, Marcus, and tell Lily that a friend said she's got this." Marcus watched as Ava walked back toward the hospital with the nurse, her steps careful but determined. Just before she reached the doors, she turned back and waved. Marcus waved back, feeling lighter than he had in hours. He settled back onto the bench, but this time he didn't feel like he was drowning. Instead, he felt like he was floating, buoyed by the wisdom and kindness of a teenage girl who had faced her own mortality with grace and courage. He thought about what she'd said about love being stronger than fear, about miracles happening every day, about the importance of being present for someone's pain rather than trying to prevent it. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Marcus pulled out his phone and finally responded to his quote. Mother's text. Surgery going well. Will call you when I know more. Love you. He then sent a text to his brother. Thinking about Sarah today. Missing her, but feeling grateful for the time we had. And, finally, he sent a text to his boss. We'll need a few more days off. Family emergency. Thank you for understanding. As the sky darkened and the hospital's windows began to glow with warm light, Marcus felt a deep sense of peace settling over him. He wasn't naive enough to think that everything would be perfect from now on, that there wouldn't be challenges ahead, or moments of fear and uncertainty. But he felt equipped to handle whatever came next, armed with the knowledge that love was indeed stronger than fear, that miracles did happen every day, and that sometimes the most important thing you can do for someone is simply be present. His phone buzzed again, and this time it was Dr. Rodriguez calling. Marcus's heart raced as he answered. Mr. Chen? This is Dr. Rodriguez. I have some good news for you. Please tell me, Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. The surgery was a complete success. We were able to remove the obstruction and repair the damaged tissue. Lily is in recovery now, and she's doing beautifully. She should be awake within the hour. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face, but these were tears of relief and joy. Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. Thank you so much. You can see her in about 30 minutes. She's been asking for you. Marcus hung up the phone and sat on the bench for a moment longer, looking up at the stars that were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. He thought about Ava, about her father crying on this same bench 3 years ago, about the strength that families find when they need it most. When he finally stood up and walked toward the hospital doors, he felt like a different person than the one who had sat down on that bench hours earlier. He was Beatty. Still scared, still worried about the future, but he was also filled with hope and gratitude and love. The elevator ride to the pediatric recovery ward felt like it took forever. But finally, Marcus was standing outside Lily's grass room. Through the window, he could see her small form in the hospital bed, her chest rising and falling steadily. Her eyes were closed, but she looked peaceful, and there was color in her cheeks that hadn't been there yesterday. Dr. Rodriguez appeared beside him. She's been asking for you, she said with a smile. She's still a little groggy from the anesthesia, but she's alert and comfortable. Marcus pushed open the door and stepped inside. Lily's eyes fluttered open at the sound of his footsteps, and when she saw him, her face lit up with a sleepy smile. Daddy, she whispered, her voice hoarse but strong. Hey, baby girl, Marcus said, moving to her bedside and taking her small hand in his. How are you feeling? Sleepy, she said, squeezing his fingers. But better. The doctor said you were really worried about me. I was, Marcus admitted. I was so scared, Lily. But you know what? I met someone today who reminded me that you're the strongest person I know. She said to tell you that a friend said you've got this. Lily smiled, her eyes already beginning to drift closed again. I do got this, Daddy. We both do. Marcus sat down in the chair beside her bed, still holding her hand. Yes, we do, sweetheart. We absolutely do. As Louis drifted back to sleep, Marcus found himself thinking about Ava again. He wanted to find her, to thank her properly for the gift she'd given him today. Maybe when Lily was feeling better, they could visit her and return the favor somehow. The next morning, after Lily had eaten a small breakfast and the doctors had confirmed that her recovery was progressing perfectly, Marcus decided to look for Ava. He asked the nurses on their floor if they knew where he could find her, describing her as a teenage girl with long dark hair who was being treated for leukemia. The nurses exchanged glances, and one of them, an older woman with kind eyes, asked Marcus to follow her down the hall. She led him to a small alcove near the elevator bank, where a beautiful memorial wall displayed photos and plaques honoring young patients who had lost their battles. Are you looking for this, Ava? The nurse asked gently, pointing to a plaque that read, In loving memory of Ava Chen, Forever Our Fighter, 2007-2023. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. The photo showed a beautiful teenage girl with long dark hair and wise eyes, the same girl who had sat beside him on the bench yesterday. But according to the dates, she had died 6 months ago. I don't understand, Marcus whispered. I talked to her yesterday. She was sitting on the bench outside, and we talked for hours." The nurse's expression was gentle, but puzzled. "I'm sorry, sir, but that's not possible. Ava passed away last winter after a long battle with leukemia. She was one of our most beloved patients. Everyone here knew her." Marcus stared at the photo, his mind reeling. "She told me her name was Ava. She said her father used to cry on the bench outside, that she'd been fighting leukemia for 3 years." "That does sound like our Ava," the nurse said softly. "She was always trying to comfort other families, always trying to help people see the hope in their situations. Even when she was very sick, she would visit other patients and their families." Marcus reached out and touched the plaque, tracing Ava's name with his finger. "She saved me yesterday. She helped me understand that love is stronger than fear." "That sounds exactly like something Ava would say," the nurse said, her eyes filling with tears. She had a way of knowing exactly what people needed to hear. Marcus stood there for a long time, looking at Ava's photo and thinking about their conversation on the bench. He didn't understand how it was possible, didn't understand what had happened, but he knew that somehow, some way, Ava had been there when he needed her most. When he returned to Lily's room, she was sitting up in bed, looking much more alert and eating some applesauce. "Daddy, you look like you've seen a ghost," she said, with a small giggle. Marcus sat down beside her bed, still processing what he'd learned. "Maybe I have, sweetheart. Maybe I have. Was it a good ghost or a scary ghost?" Lily asked, her 8-year-old mind immediately interested in the supernatural possibility. "A very good ghost," Marcus said, smiling at his daughter's pragmatic question. "A ghost who helped Daddy remember how strong and brave you are." Lily beamed at him. "I am brave, aren't I? The doctor said I was the bravest patient she'd ever had." "The bravest and the strongest," Marcus agreed, leaning over to kiss her forehead. "Just like someone else I know." Over the next few days, as Lily recovered and they prepared to go home, Marcus found himself thinking often about Ava. He researched her story online and learned that she had indeed fought leukemia for 3 years, that she had been in and out of the hospital countless times, and that she had been known for her positive attitude and her ability to encourage other patients and their families. He also learned that her father had started a foundation in her memory, dedicated to providing support and resources to families of children with serious illnesses. The foundation's mission statement included a quote from Ava: "Love is stronger than fear, and hope is stronger than despair." Marcus decided to make a donation to the foundation, and he wrote a letter to Ava's father, describing their conversation on the bench and how much it had meant to him. He didn't expect a response, but a week later, he received a phone call. "Mr. Chen? This is David Chen, Ava's father. I got your letter, and I wanted to call you personally to thank you for sharing your experience." Marcus was surprised by the call. "Mr. Chen, I'm the one who should be thanking you. Your daughter saved me that day. I don't know how to explain what happened, but she was there when I needed her most." "I believe you," David said quietly. "You're not the first person to tell me about meeting Ava at the hospital. There have been others. Families who described conversations with her that helped them through difficult times. I don't understand it either, but I've learned not to question miracles." They talked for nearly an hour, sharing stories about their daughters and about the strength that children can show in the face of adversity. David told Marcus about Ava's last days, about how she had made him promise to continue helping other families, even after she was gone. "She always said that the bench outside the hospital was a special place," David said. "She called it the crying bench, because that's where parents went when they couldn't handle being inside anymore. She made me promise that if I ever met someone who had been helped by sitting on that bench, I would tell them that she was still there, still fighting, still trying to help." Marcus felt tears in his eyes. "She is still there. She's still helping." "I know," David said. "And I think she always will be." 6 months later, Marcus returned to the hospital with Lily for her follow-up appointment. The surgery had been completely successful, and Lily was back to her normal, energetic self. After her appointment, Marcus walked with her to the memorial wall and showed her Ava's photo. "This is the girl I told you about," he said. "The one who helped Daddy when you were having your surgery." Lily studied the photo carefully. She looks nice. And she looks strong. She was both of those things, Marcus agreed. She was a fighter, just like you. Can we visit the bench where you met her? Lily asked. Marcus nodded, and they walked outside to the bench where his life had changed 6 months earlier. They sat down together, Lily curled up against his side, and Marcus told her more about his conversation with Ava. Do you think she's still here? Lily asked, looking around as if she might spot a teenage girl in a hospital gown. I think she's here in a different way, Marcus said. I think she's here in the love that families show each other, in the courage that kids like you show when you're scared, in the hope that we hold on to even when things seem impossible. Lily was quiet for a moment, then she said, I want to be like her. I want to help people when they're scared. You already do, sweetheart, Marcus said, kissing the top of her head. You help me be brave every single day. As they sat on the bench together, Marcus thought about all the ways his life had changed since that terrifying day when Lily had collapsed. He thought about the strength he'd discovered in himself, the support he'd found in unexpected places, and the love that had carried them through their darkest moments. He thought about Ava, about her father crying on this same bench 3 years earlier, about the foundation that was helping other families navigate similar challenges. He thought about the mystery of their meeting, about the impossible conversation that had changed everything for him. Most of all, he thought about the truth that Ava had shared with him, that love is indeed stronger than fear, that miracles happen every day, and that sometimes the most important thing you can do for someone is simply be present for their pain. As the sun began to set and the hospital's windows began to glow with warm light, Marcus felt a deep sense of gratitude wash over him. He was grateful for Lily's health, for the skilled doctors who had saved her life, for the family and friends who had supported them through everything. But most of all, he was grateful for a teenage girl named Ava who had appeared in his darkest moment and reminded him that he was not alone, that love was stronger than fear, and that miracles could happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time. Ready to go home? Marcus asked Lily as the stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Ready, Lily said, taking his hand. As they walked away from the bench and toward their car, Marcus felt a gentle breeze on his face, as if someone was saying goodbye. He turned back once to look at the bench, and for just a moment, he thought he saw a figure sitting there, a teenage girl with long dark hair and wise eyes, watching over all the families who would find their way to that bench in their own moments of fear and despair. Thank you, Ava, he whispered, and then he took his daughter's hand and headed home, carrying with him the gift of hope that a remarkable girl had given him on one of the darkest days of his life. The bench remained there, waiting for the next parent who would need a place to cry, a place to hope, a place to remember that love is stronger than fear and that miracles happen every day. And somewhere, in the space between the visible and the invisible, between the possible and the impossible, Ava continued her fight, continued her mission to help families find their way through the darkness and into the light. Because some battles continue even after the war is over, and some fighters never stop fighting, even when they've moved on to fight in a different realm. And sometimes, when the universe aligns in just the right way, when love is strong enough and need is great enough, those fighters find a way to reach across the divide and touch the lives of those who need them most. Marcus never forgot that lesson, and he never forgot the girl who taught it to him. And years later, when his own daughter was grown and had children of her own, he would tell them the story of Ava and the bench outside the hospital, and he would remind them that love is stronger than fear, that miracles happen every cool day, and that sometimes the most important thing you can do for someone is simply be present for their pain. And the story would continue, passed down from one generation to the next, a reminder that even in our darkest moments, we are never truly alone, and that the love we share with others has the power to transcend even death itself. The bench outside Children's Memorial Hospital continued to serve its purpose, offering a place of refuge for parents and families who needed a moment to breathe, to cry, to hope. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, when the light was just right and the wind carried whispers of comfort, visitors to that bench would feel a presence beside them, a gentle reminder that they were not alone in their struggle, that love was indeed stronger than fear, and that miracles could happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time. In the end, that was Ava's greatest gift, not just to Marcus and Lily, but to all the families who would find their way to that bench in the years to come. The gift of hope, the gift of love, the gift of knowing that even in our darkest moments, we are surrounded by grace, by mystery, by the infinite possibility that tomorrow will be better than today. And that, perhaps, is the greatest miracle of all. Years passed, and Marcus's life took on a rhythm he never could have imagined during those dark hours outside the hospital. Louie grew into a vibrant teenager, her surgical scar nothing more than a thin line that she wore like a badge of honor. She joined the track team, excelled in her studies, and developed a passion for volunteering at the Children's Hospital, where she had once been a patient. On her 16th birthday, Lily approached Marcus with a request that both surprised and moved him. "Dad, I want to do something special for my birthday. Instead of a party, I want to spend the day at the hospital with kids who are going through what I went through." Marcus watched his daughter as she spoke, seeing so much of her mother in her compassionate eyes, but also recognizing the strength that had carried her through her own medical crisis. "Are you sure that's how you want to spend your birthday?" "I'm sure," Lily said firmly. "I keep thinking about what you told me about Ava, about how she helped you when you were scared. I want to be someone who helps people when they're scared too." So on a crisp October morning, Marcus and Lily arrived at Children's Memorial Hospital with bags full of art supplies, books, and small gifts for the young patients. The nursing staff welcomed them warmly, many of them remembering Lily from her stay years earlier. "Look how much you've grown," said Nurse Patricia, who had been working the pediatric ward for over 20 years. "I remember when you were just a tiny thing recovering from surgery." Lily beamed at the recognition. "I remember you too. You used to bring me extra apple juice." As they made their rounds through the pediatric ward, Marcus was struck by how naturally Lily connected with the children. She sat beside a 7-year-old boy named Jake, who was recovering from a kidney transplant, helping him color pictures of superheroes. She read stories to a group of younger children in the playroom, doing different voices for each character and making them giggle despite their circumstances. But it was her interaction with a teenage girl named Sophia that truly amazed Marcus. Sophia was roughly the same age as Lily, battling a rare form of bone cancer that had required multiple surgeries and rounds of chemotherapy. She had been in the hospital for months, and the isolation was taking its toll. "I don't know why I should keep fighting," Sophia whispered to Lily as they sat together in the teen lounge. "I'm tired of being sick. I'm tired of watching my parents cry. I'm tired of everyone treating me like I'm going to break." Lily listened carefully, then reached into her bag and pulled out a small notebook. "Can I show you something?" she asked, opening to a page filled with her handwriting. "I keep a journal of things I want to do when I'm feeling completely healthy. Some of them are big things, like traveling to Japan or learning to surf. Some of them are small things, like having a picnic in the park or teaching my future kids how to ride a bike." End quote. Sophia looked at the pages, her eyes widening at the detailed lists and accompanying sketches. "You really think about all of this?" "Every day," Lily said. "Especially on the days when I'm feeling sorry for myself or when I'm scared about something. I think about my future self, living all these experiences, and it reminds me that I have reasons to keep fighting." Sophia was quiet for a long moment, then asked, "Do you think you could help me make a list like that?" Marcus watched from across the room as his daughter and Sophia spent the next hour planning Sophia's future, writing down dreams and goals and silly wishes. He saw Sophia's posture change as they worked, saw her eyes brighten with possibility. Later that evening, as Marcus and Lily drove home, he found himself thinking about the circle of influence that had started with Ava's kindness on that bench years ago. "You were amazing today, Lily. I think you really helped Sophia." "I hope so," Lily said, staring out the window at the city lights. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you think Ava is proud of us? Do you think she would be happy to know that what she did for you is still helping people?" Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. "I think she would be incredibly proud. I think she would be amazed to see how her kindness has rippled out into the world. I want to start a program, Lily said suddenly. At the hospital, like a peer support thing for teenagers. I want to help kids my age who are going through medical stuff. That sounds like a wonderful idea, Marcus said. What would you call it? Lily was quiet for a moment, then smiled. Ava's Angels. Because she was the first angel who helped our family. And now we want to help other families too. Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. I think that's perfect. Over the following months, Marcus watched as Lily developed her program with the help of the hospital's social services department. She created a training program for teenage volunteers, developed activities and support groups for young patients, and established a mentorship system that paired recovering teens with those still in treatment. The program's first official event was held in the hospital's main lobby, and Marcus was amazed by the turnout. Families filled the space, teenagers shared their stories, and the atmosphere was one of hope and community rather than illness and despair. David Chen, Ava's father, was among the attendees. He had driven 3 hours to be there, and Marcus was moved when he saw the older man approach Lily after her presentation. Your father told me about your program, David said, his voice thick with emotion. Ava would have loved this. She always said that the best way to honor someone's memory is to continue their work. I hope I'm doing it right, Lily said, suddenly looking very young despite her poise. You're doing it perfectly, David assured her. You're giving hope to families who desperately need it, just like Ava did. As the event continued, Marcus found himself drawn outside to the familiar bench. He sat down and watched, through the large windows, as his daughter facilitated a group discussion with teenage patients and their families. She had grown into someone he barely recognized, someone whose strength and compassion seemed to fill every room she entered. She's extraordinary, a voice said beside him. Marcus turned to see an elderly woman settling onto the bench, her gray hair pulled back in a simple bun, and her eyes kind but tired. I'm sorry? Your daughter, the woman said, nodding toward the window. She's extraordinary. I'm Helen Rodriguez, Dr. Rodriguez's mother. Maria told me about what your daughter is doing here. Marcus smiled. Dr. Rodriguez saved Lily's life. It seems fitting that we're trying to give back. Maria also told me about your experience here several years ago, Helen continued. About the girl you met on this bench. Marcus looked at her with surprise. You know about that? Helen nodded. I know about Ava. I was a volunteer here for 15 years before I retired. I knew her well, and I know her father. But I also know about the other encounters people have had with her. Other encounters? Oh yes. Oh yes. Helen said with a gentle smile. You're not the only one who's met her here. There's a family from Phoenix whose son was in a car accident. The father was sitting on this bench at 3 a.m, convinced his boy wouldn't make it, when a teenager sat down and talked to him about never giving up hope. The boy made a full recovery. Marcus felt goosebumps rise on his arms. He described Ava? Long dark hair, wise eyes, hospital gown under a cardigan. She told him her name was Ava and that she'd been fighting for 3 years. Helen's eyes twinkled. There's also a mother from Denver whose daughter was born with a severe heart defect. She was told to prepare for the worst. But she met Ava in the hospital cafeteria one night, and they talked for hours about the strength of love. The little girl has had 3 successful surgeries and is now a healthy 5-year-old. Marcus stared at Helen, his mind reeling. How many people have met her? I've documented at least 12 encounters over the past 4 years, Helen said. Always in moments of crisis. Always with the same message about love being stronger than fear. Always with the same result, families finding the strength to carry on. But that's impossible, Marcus said, though even as he spoke the words, he knew they weren't true. He had experienced the impossible himself. Is it? Helen asked. Or is it just a different kind of possible than we usually expect? They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the activity inside the hospital. Finally, Helen spoke again. I think what your daughter is doing is part of Ava's legacy, the ripple effect of that first encounter you had. Every family that's helped by Lily's program, every teenager who finds hope through her mentorship, every parent who feels less alone because of the community she's building, that's all connected to the moment Ava sat down beside you on this bench. Marcus felt the truth of her words settle into his bones. It never ends, does it? The influence of one act of kindness. Never, Helen agreed. It just keeps growing, touching more and more lives. That's the real miracle, if you ask me. As the evening wound down and families began to leave, Marcus was approached by a young father carrying a toddler. "Excuse me, are you Marcus Chen?" "Yes, I am. My name is James Patterson. My son Danny was born with spina bifida, and he's been in and out of this hospital for 2 years. Your daughter talked to my wife during one of our stays, and she told us about Ava's Angels. We wanted to thank you for raising such an incredible person." Marcus looked at the little boy in James's arms, who was smiling and reaching for the colorful balloons tied to the hospital's information desk. "How is Danny doing?" "He's doing great," James said, his voice filled with pride. "He's walking with braces now, and he's going to start regular preschool next month. But more than that, we're not afraid anymore. Your daughter helped us see that Danny's condition doesn't define him, that he can have a full, happy life." "I'm so glad to hear that," Marcus said, feeling overwhelmed by the man's gratitude. "We're moving to Colorado next month for James's job," James continued, "but we wanted to start an Ava's Angels chapter in Denver. Would that be okay?" Marcus looked through the window at Lily, who was hugging goodbye to Sophia and several other teenagers. "I think that would be wonderful. I think Ava would be honored." As James and his family left, Marcus felt a deep sense of completion. The program that had started with his daughter's desire to help others was already growing beyond what they had imagined. In just a few months, it would be reaching families they would never meet, in places they might never visit. When Lily finally joined him outside, she looked tired, but exhilarated. "Dad, today was incredible. I think we really made a difference." "I know you did," Marcus said, pulling her into a hug. "I'm so proud of you, Lily. Not just for what you did today, but for who you've become. I couldn't have done it without you," she said, leaning against his shoulder. "And I couldn't have done it without knowing Ava's story. She started all of this, didn't she?" Marcus looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. "She did. And now you're continuing it. Do you think she knows?" Lily asked quietly. Before Marcus could answer, a gentle breeze stirred the autumn leaves around their feet, and for just a moment, Marcus could have sworn he heard a whisper of laughter, young and joyful and full of approval. "I think she knows," he said softly. "I think she's been watching over all of us." As they walked to their car, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. From that terrifying day when Lily had collapsed during soccer practice, to the hours of agony waiting for news of her surgery, to the miraculous encounter with Ava on the bench, to watching his daughter grow into someone who dedicated her life to helping others. It had been a journey of pain and fear, but also of growth and love and unexpected miracles. It had taught him that sometimes the worst moments in life can become the foundation for the most beautiful chapters that follow. 6 months later, Marcus received a package in the mail from David Chen. Inside was a small wooden plaque with brass lettering that read, "In honor of Ava's Angels and the continuation of love's endless ripple, may this bench be a place of hope for all who sit here." Attached was a note. "The hospital has agreed to install this beside the bench where you first met Ava. I thought you and Lily should be the ones to place it there." On a bright Saturday morning, Marcus and Lily returned to the hospital with the plaque. They found the maintenance crew waiting for them, along with Dr. Rodriguez, several nurses who had worked with both Lily and Ava, and a small group of families who had been touched by the Ava's Angels program. As they installed the plaque beside the bench, Marcus noticed that someone had left a small bouquet of wildflowers on the seat. There was no note, no identification, just a simple arrangement of flowers that somehow felt like a blessing. "I think we should say something," Lily said, looking around at the gathered group. "Something to honor Ava and everyone who's been helped by sitting on this bench." Marcus nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. Ava Chen was a remarkable young woman who fought courageously against leukemia for 3 years. In her short life, she touched countless people with her wisdom, her compassion, and her unwavering belief that love is stronger than fear. "She taught us that miracles happen every day," Lily continued, "and that sometimes the most important thing we can do is simply be present for someone else's pain. She showed us that even in our darkest moments, we're never truly alone. This bench has become a place of hope, Dr. Rodriguez added. A place where families come to find strength, to cry, to pray, to remember that they're part of something larger than themselves. As the small ceremony concluded and people began to disperse, Marcus and Lily remained on the bench for a few moments longer. The morning sun was warm on their faces, and the hospital's garden was beginning to show signs of spring. "Dad," Lily said quietly, "I want to tell you something. Last week, when I was here working with the kids, I met a woman in the elevator. She was crying, and she looked completely lost. I asked if she was okay, and she said her grandson had just been diagnosed with a rare genetic disorder." Marcus listened, sensing there was more to the story. "I sat with her for a while and told her about Ava's angels, about how support makes all the difference. When I was leaving, she hugged me and said, 'Thank you, Angel. You appeared just when I needed you most.'" Lily paused, looking thoughtful. "It made me wonder if maybe we're all angels for each other. You know, maybe that's how it works." Marcus felt a deep warmth spread through his chest. "I think you might be right. I think maybe that's exactly how it works." As they stood to leave, Marcus took one last look at the bench and the new plaque beside it. He thought about all the people who would sit here in the future, all the families who would find comfort and strength in this simple piece of furniture. He thought about Ava, wherever she was, and hoped she knew that her legacy was living on in ways she never could have imagined. He thought about the mysterious ways that love travels through the world, touching lives, healing hearts, creating connections that transcend the boundaries of life and death. Most of all, he thought about his daughter, who had transformed her own experience of fear and pain into a source of hope and healing for others. She had become exactly the kind of person Ava would have wanted to meet, the kind of person who made the world a little brighter just by being in it. As they walked away from the bench, Marcus felt a sense of completion, but also of continuation. The story that had begun with a scared father crying outside a hospital had evolved into something beautiful and lasting, something that would continue to touch lives for years to come. And somewhere in the space between the seen and unseen, between the possible and impossible, Ava smiled and continued her eternal watch over the bench, ready to appear whenever someone needed an angel, whenever someone needed to be reminded that love is indeed stronger than fear, and that miracles happen every day for those who believe in them. The bench remained, a constant in an ever-changing world, a place where hope lived and love triumphed, where the ordinary became extraordinary and the impossible became possible. One conversation, one moment of kindness, one miracle at a time.